Other economic news today, retail sales rose by 2.4% in July, above expectations. A bit of a sigh of relief for South African retailers that have been struggling to pump sales. Retail sales had contracted by almost 8% in June, and only a slight pickup was expected in August. Well, the main contributors, general dealers and retailers in textiles, clothing, footwear and leather goods. And what we've noticed is that even though there's been growth in retail sales has been trending downwards in recent months, we as South Africans are still buying clothes. It's not a fair gain though, so what clothes are we buying and why? We can have a quick discussion. To discuss, we're joined by fashion designer Anisa Mpungwe and ELLE's publishing editor Gisel Wertheim Aymes. Thank you both for joining me. So let's start with you, because I chatted to you before when you were designing for Mr. Price. Yes. So now you've moved and you've got your own range, which is much more upper end. Yes. And what is that difference right now? Are you finding a huge difference between low end and the upper end of the market?
Yes, of course, because when you're designing for a low end, there's certain details and certain fabric qualities that you choose that you don't choose for a high end product. I think what Elle, myself, Mr. Price are trying to do is to encourage designers, local designers, to be able to differentiate between the two, to create something that is a one-time piece and something that you can, it's a trend, but really appreciate the two and access, we try to access every kind of customer out there.
Giselle, what are you noticing broad trend-wise? Because we don't have much time, unfortunately, because of the press briefing. But are people looking at cost, or are they looking at quality? How are the international brands doing in comparison to the South African brands? What are you noticing?
Well, first, I just want to say my condolences to all those South Africans and their families. It's a very sad day and difficult to follow that kind of news. Just very quickly, I think the South African consumer still isn't as sophisticated as the equivalent internationally. So South African consumers are still buying on price. Typically, in more mature or developed markets, what you find is that consumers will buy fewer clothes but much better quality. And I think that's why we are seeing quite a lot of we see a lot of young, or not young designers, emerging designers really struggling to start shops and sustain and make a good living out of their clothes, because they're really competing with middle to more broad range clothes between 400 and 700 rand, per item, which they're going and buying. And that's a quality issue. And I think once they become more discerning and understand that if you buy a really good quality and unique piece, it will last you a very long time. So the investment actually pays off, the ROI. Is a better ROI.
Final question, and very quickly, we still have that upper end of the market that's quite resilient though. What are the people doing who should buy Gucci? In fact, they are saying to me that we have to cut it there, unfortunately, and I wish we could have more time and look at these trends behind the numbers. Hopefully we can do that again soon. Thank you for joining us. So a quick look at the story behind the retail figures out today. That was fashion designer Anisa Mpungwe and Gisel Wertheim Aymes from Elle magazine.